Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 127. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing?
Doing good. Make sure you don't flub those openings like that. I accidentally left the flub from the other day in there. Up until somebody caught it, and I think you can still find that on the YouTube version.
Little Easter egg, little peek behind the curtain of this well-oiled machine.
Yeah. You gotta look out. That lets you know that you should be jumping on these and seeing them after I edit them too, because I forget about these things sometimes, quickly at that.
That's all good. All right. Well, people found out that this is not perfection every single episode.
Wait, what?
Don't tell
them that. All right.
I know. Hope you were sitting down for that one, guys. All right, Dave, we have a lot to talk about in today's show. I want to start with some Steelers-centric news. And while I'm sure most people don't really care a whole lot about this stuff or don't pay a ton of attention to it, I have big, I said on Twitter, Leslie Note Pawnee energy about this kind of stuff, about Steelers' internal coaching staff changes and some minor ones that have been made, but in a good way for the Steelers. Their website updated this past week, and a couple of Steelers have earned promotions. They are Blaine Stewart, who has moved from coaching assistant to assistant wide receivers coach. Now, he was the co-receivers coach last year with Ray Sherman after Daryl Drake's tragic passing, but his title has now officially been bumped up to assistant wide receiver coach. Denzel Martin from coaching assistant to assistant outside linebackers coach. I assume that role is going to stay pretty similar because he was working with the front seven last season. And Dennis McInnes is going from scouting intern to Blesto scout. That shifts Chidi Iwoma, the team's previous Blesto scout, to area scout. And so those are the internal moves for the Steelers. Nothing major, but we wrote about this actually just a couple weeks ago. We had mentioned specifically Stewart, Martin, and McInnes as all three risers in the organization, and now all three get promotions.
Yeah, absolutely. Good eye and good previous write-up on your part. Now, who is that Leslie guy that you're talking about?
It's Parks and Rec. You ever seen the show Parks and Rec? No. All right. Well, if you see it, you'll get it. But and putting that part aside, so yeah, Blaine Stewart's a guy that I think is probably going to be somewhere else this time next year. I knew he had opportunities to potentially get the West Virginia receivers job this past year. It didn't work out. It went to the offensive coordinator who wanted the co-title of receivers coach, so that's why that fell through. But I think Stewart's definitely the biggest riser, but all three are on the rise within the Steelers organization.
I don't know. You think he runs off that quick after another year?
I do. I mean, who knows? But I mean, he's especially for Stewart and Martin, because they coach at the Shrine Game. What Martin was on special teams, and Stewart coached the quarterbacks, and you build up a lot of connections that way. A lot of doors open up. So I'm not going to guarantee it, but my strong suspicion is he'll have a position coach job probably in college football this time next year.
All right. Well, that's something to be on the lookout for sure.
One other thing, I forgot it slipped my mind whenever I initially wrote the article was, I'll try to get the pronunciation right here, Fawaz Zudin has moved from this team's football VR intern, the virtual reality intern, to scouting intern, which replaces McInnes, who went from scouting intern to Blesto scout. And for those who don't know, Blesto is one of the two national scouting agencies. It helps you with all teams and just kind of file initial reports to start the year to kind of give teams a good baseline to work with. So that is McInnes' role. He's been with the team since 2018, and he gets a well-deserved promotion.
All right. That brings us up to date on some of those moves there.
Yep. All right, Dave. Bigger stuff to talk about. The July 15th deadline has passed, and as expected, the Steelers have not done a long-term deal with Bud Dupree. He will play on the franchise tag in 2020. We still don't know if that'll be as a DN, as linebacker, or some sort of compromise, which you suggested on Tuesday's show, but we know he will not be getting a long-term deal until after the season at the earliest.
Yeah, I think the further this thing got along into it, right? Especially once the once the pandemic hit in pretty solid. Look, I mean, I firmly believe that had the right deal presented itself between the two sides. And look, I don't think the Steelers went in there and tried to shortchange Bud any. I just think that I'm willing to bet that the type of deal that they were offering him was kind of a right at or slightly above maybe what the franchise tag amount was. Standard Steelers guaranteed money of really only the signing bonus and really virtually guaranteed the first year base salary. But that's normally all they do in these kind of deals. Now, did their offer or best offer equal, at least the franchise tag this year and what the franchise tag would be next year? It's hard to say. You would like to think that they knew that, Bud Dupree would turn down less than that, and gamble on himself. So the thing is we'll probably never know the best offer that the Steelers gave Bud Dupree. Very unlikely. And now we'll sit and wait and see what he can do this season under the franchise tag, which as you mentioned, we'll wait to see how the grievance goes and how all that plays out there. Now, really, the only he'll have to play underneath the tag in 2020. What do you do if Bud Dupree goes out and, let's say, has, 12, 13, 14, 15 sack season for you this season? Do you entertain the idea of now? It's obviously a loaded question because we don't know what other how a few other players are going to play out that might you might think about tagging as well too, but do you at least do you open up the notion that potentially you might want to tag Bud Dupree a second time next year, depending on the season he has this year, and obviously depending on how much? Look, Alex Highsmith might not play a bunch if Bud Dupree's having the kind of season that I think everybody should hope Bud Dupree has.
That's so difficult to envision that because that's at least 125% of this year's
120%.
And so what that number is reaching into 19 million.
Right. Based on his tag number this year, it'd be something like 18 something million.
Yeah. Again, as you said, it's kind of probably dependent on what other guys do. There were so many free agents upcoming this year, unusual number for the Steelers. And, how does Juju perform? If he has a great year, I'd probably tag him first. Maybe he'd be a little bit cheaper, and maybe I'd rather keep him around. So it's hard to say, but it would take an extraordinary season, I think, for me to strongly entertain tagging him again.
What's an extraordinary season?
Well,
what if he had the same season that TJ Watt just had?
All right. Yeah, it would have to be that kind of level. Even then, I would prefer to try to work out a long-term deal. Again, you're going to obviously pay a lot for it, but I think the team views the tag as mechanism of last resort. So if I could do a long-term deal, that'd be great. But I know, to your point, usually you got to tag first to try to facilitate the long-term deal, but it would take a lot just because you know how much money that's going to cost.
Right. There's no doubt about it. You would have to tag him first. He'd be smart to make them tag him first, and then go from there. Because look, we would expect if Bud Dupree has the kind of season that everybody should hope that he has, that maybe he's capable of having, that he would be, ripe for a nice payday on the free agent market. And look, sure. He would potentially price himself out of a long-term deal with the Steelers post a second tag by just having a great season. So the likelihood of all that happening is very slim, but I think you have to at least, as Kevin Colbert would probably tell you, had he released a statement or had he talked, and that's the other thing.
Yeah, he didn't get the bell treatment.
Right. Did you find that a little bit curious?
Did they do a bell statement after the first tag too, or just the second tag?
I'll have to look back, Alex, but I seem to remember 2 years in a row.
Okay, because if it was just the second year, I kind of understood that because everything was kind of controversial and all that, and doing second tags is rare. But I'd have to look and compare and contrast. It didn't surprise me a whole lot. I don't know. Dupree doesn't have the sheen of the tag as Le'Veon Bell does, maybe because Bell's made such a stink about it during his time there.
I think it would have been worth a paragraph. I mean, how long does it take you to dictate one of those out?
I mean, have they done it for every player? Or was Bell like an exception? Did they do it for other tag players in history?
You'd have to go back, and how many tag players have they not gotten deals done with?
Yeah,
true. You had Lamar Woodley that you got that done with. Obviously, you didn't get when you had Jason Worlds on the transition tag, but that transition tag a little bit different than the franchise tag. I'd have to go back in time here, but I mean, why would you do it for Bell and then not a guy like Bud Dupree, who's really been kind of, like it or not, Bud Dupree's been kind of a model guy for you, Pittsburgh Steelers, speaking, specifically there, not kind of the vocal guy that, let's say, Le'Veon Bell was, or on Twitter. Bud really keeps to himself, a lot, and really has been, I wouldn't say ideal Pittsburgh Steeler, but I mean, he hasn't caused any problems, and he's kind of just keep his nose to the grindstone and go about his business and speak when spoken to kind of player there. So I just found it a little curious.
Yeah, I mean, Dupree has slid into some DMs before and said some things to some people, but point
taken. Oh, yeah, he's gotten on me before.
Okay, yeah. I mean, maybe that's the reason why they didn't have a statement, because Bell was so vocal, and you knew Bell was going to be vocal about not getting the long-term deal, so it's a Steelers kind of CYA move to try to have their own brief statement as vague as it ends up being. So maybe that's the reason why, just because you knew Bell was going to be a lot more vocal about the situation as Bud Dupree.
All right, back to Bud Dupree, though. Look, here's the thing, and there is obviously a huge bias. You can feel it. I know you can feel it. I know I feel it. Look, I mean, this is a guy that I think even you said, no, they're not going to, what was it first, the 5th-year option with him, or was it the tag that you thought for sure that they, were pretty sure he wouldn't get?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know if I said they weren't going to do it, but I was more against the idea of the 5th-year option, I think, than you were.
Right, and I obviously look. I mean, we all knew once he got that okay, what's going to happen here? I don't think we expected him to have the season that he had. I know I didn't.
I still held out some hope. I wasn't expecting it, but I just knew if he could be healthy, and it's obvious, but if he was healthy, he could have a really good season. I think that potential was always there.
All right, now is there any reason to believe that he won't have a season at least comparable to one he just had?
Yeah, that's reasonable to assume.
I mean, and if he does, what does that do for his market value? Well, regardless of your bias against Bud Dupree, especially in recent week here with him filing the grievance and all like that, if you're biased against Bud Dupree right now and can't wait to get him gone, at least hang on to him through the 2020 season and wish him well and hope he has his best season to date, because not only obviously would that help the Steelers, it would help increase Bud Dupree's free agent market value immensely. And not only that, look, I mean, if he leaves during free agency and gets a high dollar deal, that obviously will pay off to the Steelers in a compensatory draft pick value on top of that. So all that said, what is the likelihood of him following, having another great season?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's every reason to believe he'll have another strong season. The exact number of sacks can be a little floaty. They can bump up. Numbers can fall down a little bit. My expectation is that Dupree's going to have another solid season, right around double-digit sacks, maybe in that 9 to 12 kind of range, 9 on the low end, 12 on the high end. He'll have a good year, and he'll be playing for somebody else in 2021.
Right. I think I think most would agree that the likely outcome of this is that after this season, he's played his last down with the Steelers.
Right. And just the combination of obviously how much it's going to cost to do a long-term deal, all the other free agents who have to be signed. Not that you couldn't sign T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree, but that's a factor as well, knowing that you are going to have to pay T.J. Watt, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It's going to be a whole lot of money. The financial uncertainty, although I assume by the end of the season, at the very least, there'll be clarity on that. All of those factors combined, it makes me feel like this will be Dupree's last season.
Right, and now we'll just hope. And look, I mean, he's going to be an interesting guy to break down too. Especially with a rookie behind, a rookie draft pick behind him and all. And you just hope that he can pick right up where he left off, because look, we've said it time and time again. He really showed a lot of stuff last year as a pass rusher, and he's been good and got better even, I think, against the run last year.
Mm-hmm. And he is, as TJ Watt said, a really hard worker, and his effort is fantastic as well. And so, yeah, hopefully he'll play well. As you said, you should root for him to do well. And even if that kind of seals his fate as leaving Pittsburgh, the fact that he does well obviously helps his defense, helps his team win, and I'm fine with that.
And we'll see how the grievance plays out here in the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dave, some other players to talk about in terms of deals that have gotten done, some that were kind of surprising, at least one with Chris Jones on the franchise tag, the Chiefs defensive lineman, how that relates to Cam Heyward. Of course, Myles Garrett getting a mega deal with the Cleveland Browns, and how that could relate to TJ Watt. That is very much more in your wheelhouse, Dave. You wrote about both topics for Steelers Depot, which I'd encourage you guys to check out. So I'll kind of turn the mic over to you to explain how those deals do and don't affect Watt and Cam's future extensions.
Yeah, first of all, I don't think you weren't surprised that they got a deal done with Jones, right?
I really hadn't followed it. I mean, anytime it's a franchise tag, you never know if it's going to get done or not. But I mean, the Chiefs are doing a great job of navigating the cap. I'll tell you that much.
They really have gotten creative, and the fact that they've gotten players to be able to essentially. Not essentially. They have been able to get players to forego early, strong cash flow in lieu of kind of more guaranteed money here. And now the thing with Chris Jones, and we can get into the minutia here and how you want to view the overall value of his contract. Generally, always you look at these contracts as new money over old money, okay? He never signed his tag, okay? So do you want to call his outstanding tag old money, or do you want to consider his new deal just all the new money? Whatever way you want to look at that. Anyway, it ended up being a 4-year deal with him that totals out at $80 million base value. It has up to value of $85 million because he's got an extra $5 million in yearly sack incentives that are not likely to be earned incentives. So that's why it isn't counted in the base value of this deal. Now, if you consider all that new money, then he's got a $20 million a year average. If you consider it, if you want to subtract the tag amount out of that and then consider it a 3-year, whatever the $80 million minus the tag amount is, well, then that would be his new money average, which would be slightly higher. I think around $21.29 million would be his average. So a little bit different apples to oranges there, but regardless, he's going to this new deal in here makes him either the second or third second to third highest defensive tackle in the NFL right now. I don't think that's a huge surprise right now where we sit. Now, the thing is what kind of impact does this deal have on Cameron Heyward and his potential rest of the summer negotiations with the Steelers? And quite honestly, I view it as zero impact because I view Cameron Heyward and have viewed Cameron Heyward pretty much all this offseason as a player with a market value somewhere between 17.5 on the low side million, 17.5 million average new money value to highest end 20 million. Okay. And I think 20 million is kind of extreme, but I want to give them at least a somewhat realistic high side there. I think when you boil this down, and as I just mentioned there, Chris Jones, look, you would not expect Cam to come away from, at least I wouldn't, maybe you do. I would expect Cam, if he signs a deal here in the remaining what's left of this offseason, that would put him in the top 3 or top 2 defensive tackles in the league. However, I would expect him to maybe exit an extension deal as a top 5 highest paid player at defensive tackle. Would you or would you not agree?
I was looking at over the cap the other day, and I think the numbers roughly in my head was like right above J.J. Watt, which I think was going to put him like fourth or something. I can't remember quite off the top of my head right now, but somewhere in that 4 to 5 range.
You obviously would, Cameron Heyward would expect to be the highest paid defensive player, I would think, on the Steelers, right?
Yes.
All right, so that would put him above Bud Dupree's tag amount, whatever that winds up being, which right now is a little less than $16 million. I think that if you look at the top 5 highest paid defensive tackles in the league right now, 17.5 would get that done. Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, I kind of feel the sweet spot of being $17.5 million to $18.5 million, right in between there. Now, where do you come in on that? There are people saying, no way, Cam will, no way that's going to happen. Cam, as good as Cam is, at his age, it's not worth it. Cam will take less than that. I have some people tell me Cam will take probably $14.5 million, $16 million per year, along those lines. Am I crazy to think that if a new deal gets done with Cameron Heyward in the next several weeks, that his average yearly value will come in between $17.5 to $18.5 million?
No, the number I had in mind was splitting the difference at around $18 million. And yeah, I mean, just even putting Jones aside, it was just a weird reaction from some Steeler fans, not all, of course, but just like, you can't pay Hayward. He's too old. He's not worth it. He's not, at that type of level. I know he's in his 30s, but this dude's still in the prime of his career. He's still an elite guy, a leader on your team, one of the best interior defensive linemen in football. That dude's going to get paid. Maybe it's different terms. Maybe it's a slightly shorter contract. Those things can be debated. But from an average yearly, market value, that dude's getting paid, and rightfully so.
How shocked will you be if a deal comes in, that let's say under $17 million per?
A little. I mean, I guess at that point it'd be Hayward doing the old hometown discount kind of thing. It would still be a significant raise over his current deal he's playing on. But I think somewhere that $17 to $18 million range is where I think that contract's going to come in at.
Now, I'm fairly confident that that's going to be the price should he sign. Now, the question is, will he? And once again, going back to Chris Jones, I view this deal as a deal that I think several of us saw coming. If indeed he didn't have to play on the franchise tag, I mean, it only made sense. I mean, the franchise tag was 16.1, and he obviously comes in. Now, here's the thing about his deal. In the first 2 years of that deal, the cash flow, as I mentioned, is not great. Now, he's got a better cash flow schedule than Patrick Mahomes does, but even so, Chris Jones in the first 2 years of his deal will pocket a little less than $38 million. I know people saying, "Oh, woe is him," but still, that normally the first 2 years of a new deal, the cash flow is 16 to maybe 20% higher than the actual average yearly value of the entire deal, because the whole issue is, man, I got to get my money early, because I might not see the back end of my deal. Now, obviously, he's the way this thing's set up, I think Chris Jones is guaranteed to at least see 3 years of this deal. Now, I think the Chiefs have a perfect opportunity after 2 to pitch, should something happen to get out of it there. But I view him as safely being able to earn the first 3 years of the deal, which is $60 million, and more than likely, just barring something really strange happening, him seeing all of it, which would be the $80 million and potentially $85 million, depending on what his sack totals are like there. So kudos to the Chiefs on being able to navigate this thing, because once again, his tag number was set to be $16.126 million. That's exactly what his tag amount is this year coming out of this new deal as well too. So kudos to the Chiefs. But the thing is, people are going to say, well, why can't the Steelers do something like this, say with the deal with Cameron Heyward? Well, there's nothing says that they can't. Okay, it would be huge news for the Steelers with the way that they structure contracts if they came out of this deal with a structure similar to that of Chris Jones. And Cam would have to sign off on it, and the deal would have to kind of be set up where it almost guarantees that Cam would see the first 3 years of the deal. That would average what we just, and in other words, what would $17.5 million times 3 be? And actually, you'd have to go a little bit higher than that because he's due $9.5 million in old money right now as well too. So what is $17.5 million times 3 plus $9.5 million? And that's basically what Cam Heyward would have to be almost virtually guaranteed to walk away after the next 3 years with, in my opinion, to entice him to do such a deal and thus sacrifice kind of the first year or two slightly lower cash flow.
Mm-hmm. So you said 17.5 times 3 plus 9?
Plus 9.5.
9.5, so that'd be, what is that, 62, I think?
Okay, well, that $62 million then would have to be Cam Heyward's cash flow that he would be, and for the Steelers to guarantee all of that would be just, for a non-quarterback, they just don't do that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, you can get a lot of that kind of, guarantee. You could give him a $20 million. Well, even then, see, the funny thing about the Chris Jones deal is there's no signing bonus involved.
Right, and Mahomes' signing bonus was super small too, right?
Right, it's like $10 million, right?
Yeah.
So you would really have, it would come down to just basically telling Cam, we're going to fully guarantee your first 2 years, and really virtually guarantee the third, which would be something that the Steelers just don't do. Could they do it? Have people been screaming for the Steelers to do their contracts a little bit different? Yes, but it would really go against what this team has done in the past. Now, could the Steelers frame this thing and say, look, the whole COVID thing and all like that is what instigated this. This is a one-time situation here. But it'd be interesting to see. My gut tells me that they still won't cave to the way that they do deals, and that if they were to do a deal for Cameron Heyward that would average, let's say, 17.5 to 18 million per year in average new money, that they would still give him, let's say, a $20 million signing bonus. The extension would be technically a 4-year extension, and then you work out the cash flow from there. But long and short of it, I don't see the Chris Jones deal having any impact on Cameron Heyward and potentially getting a new deal done with him. The only question I think now is, do they want to do a deal? I think Cam will be fair in his asking price, which I once again I think the floor would be around $17.5 million, and I think Cam will be very reasonable in guarantees that would fit what the Steelers normally do in a contract. Now the only question is can the two sides get it done between now and the start of the regular season?
It's just to put a bow on it. Well, to answer the question, I think that they will still get it done before the season. But what would be the framework of a deal? 4 years, $62 million is how it would be announced. Am I reading that right?
It would be a 4-year extension times, let's say, $17.5 million. Okay.
Okay. So
and that would be what?
70 million.
All right, 70 million. And then, the whole deal would be add another 9.5 onto that.
Okay.
Because that's his own money. So
gotcha.
It'd be, but the extension would be framed as 4 years times the 17.5 million, because that's all new money right there.
Okay. Gotcha.
And he has 9.5 in old money, and that doesn't just magically go away. Unfortunately, agents don't forget about that. So you have to pay him, and that's where the talk comes in about the new money average. So basically, I foresee a 3. Well, if you want to keep his cap hit roughly the same as it is right now. In fact, you could probably lower it by about $2 million. The ideal thing to do with Cam would be to sign him to a 4-year extension with a new money average of around $17.5 million. So, kids, write that down and see how close Uncle Dave gets to it.
And you still believe it'll happen before the start of the season?
Yeah, and look, I understand a lot is still happening here, and I know the league is still trying to hammer out what's going to happen with the cap next year. But I mean, look, if you don't get him signed, to an extension, then you almost will be forced to use the franchise tag on him. Next off season, and people say, well, no, you can still get him signed and not have to use a franchise tag. Well, that sounds great in theory, but what if you have to, what if you got multiple players that you're considering putting a franchise tag on,
Right. And you probably will be in that situation.
Right. So you need to go ahead and get him locked up now.
Yeah, no, I think you do. I think it will happen. We'll see. But I still very confident.
Give me your side of percentage of chance that you think it will be getting him signed to a new deal before the start of the regular season.
I think it's high. I think it's like 90%. I mean, I'd be very surprised if it did not happen because both sides wanted it to happen. Hayward wants to say remain a Steeler. The Steelers want Hayward to remain a Steeler. When those things happen, generally, you're going to get a good outcome.
There you go. I'm with you. I'm probably, if you're at 90, I want to be at 91.
Your price is right me again. All right, Dave. Talk about Myles Garrett, someone who's not on the franchise tag, but somebody that we kind of expected to get a long-term deal at some point. It is a doozy at $125 million total, and how that relates to TJ Watt. And I think that very much is in Watt's ballpark in terms of market. John Clayton would weirdly disagree with some odd commentary, but you take it away.
Boy, you want a hill to die on for John Clayton, right? I mean, look, John Clayton at one time was the premier NFL insider, was he not?
Mm-hmm. And of course, covered the Steelers in the 80s.
Right. I mean, if anybody knows or you would think would know the way the Steelers worked for the time that he covered him and the time that he was quote unquote an NFL insider, is John Clayton. Personally, we've talked about it. We've quoted quite a few things, I think, over the last 6 months about John Clayton. Have been kind of head scratchers overall, reporting one thing and end up being another. Maybe he's not the insider that we once thought he was. And the things he had to say about TJ Watt recently, I think kind of back that up as well, too. And as a starting point here, everybody should know that Myles Garrett has now signed a 5-year extension that reportedly totals, the extension side of it totals out at $125 million. In total, this is a 7-year deal for him because he had 2 years left on his rookie contract. So the new money side is $125 million. That means he now has a $25 million average salary, which makes him the highest paid defensive player in the league. Am I right?
I believe you are.
Higher than Khalil Mack there. So is it surprising that they got this done with Mack and that he's exiting, not Mack, Garrett, and that he's exiting this deal as the league's highest paid player? No, I don't think so. And people will say, well, why are they doing it now with him still having 2 years left on their deal? It boils down to the Browns have cash and cap that they need to spend. And people probably say, what do you mean they need to spend? Well, in the CBA, you got to spend over a certain, X amount of years. You got to spend, I don't know, did the percentage go up from 89 to like 90 to 91? I can't remember the specifics, but at a minimum, teams have to spend 89% of the cap amount over X amount of year span in cash. And the way you spend that in cash is giving it to players. Okay. So here they were sitting there on a pile of cash and even though they had a very busy free agency period, you got to remember this is a Browns team that hasn't had to spend a lot of money on second contracts to highly drafted players, right? In fact, wasn't Joe Hayden the last first round pick that found his way to a second contract with the Browns?
Yep.
Oh, Lord. I mean, that lets you know that why the Browns get themselves into some of the situations that they are is not only the drafting, but they're almost forced to pay the cash out to maybe some players that are marginal because NFL rules say you have to. Mm-hmm. So when you make, it's almost a byproduct of bad snowball that starts from bad drafting is you can't get those players a second contract, so you got to give the money to somebody. So a lot of times you end up maybe overpaying for for a free agent. And then if they don't live out that contract, then there's bad money. You're throwing bad money after bad draft picks, if you will. But regardless, that's where Myles Garrett exits this week, is as the highest paid defensive player in the league. Now, the topic, John Clayton was on 93.7 The Fan a few days ago, and he was asked, well, what does this Garrett deal ultimately mean for a player such as T.J. Watt, who really, I think everybody should at least agree with me on, is not expected to get a new deal until this same time next year. Would you feel free to take the other side of this if you think I'm wrong here, that you think that next year will be the year for T.J. Watt?
No, I agree. I think next summer will be T.J. Watt's payday.
All right, here's what John Clayton had to say about the impact of, or basically what Watt's market value is right now. He says, I'd say right now 16, and that's $1 million per season, and maybe a little bit more than that, Clayton said, of Watt's current worth on the heels of the Browns signing Garrett. And now Bud Dupree doesn't want to hear this, and neither does Shaq Barrett. But it's like, okay, there's a difference in the price of a defensive end versus the price of a linebacker. Good Lord, who has been feeding him the Kool-Aid? And so, you figure that. I know that, and he goes on to say, I know that Khalil Mack got $23.5 million. So he's going to he turns around and contradicts himself right here. Yep. I know that Khalil Mack got $23.5 million, and that stunned everybody because, again, he's a linebacker. But usually there's a $2 to $3 million difference between D end and a linebacker. So, I don't know if Watt does have the chance to get to $20 million, but I would tend to think it's going to be very, very difficult. My jaw about hit the damn floor when I heard that. Thoughts on what John Clayton had to say?
Yeah, I think it's just off base. I mean, even under Clayton's assumption, if Watt was hypothetically a DN, then at $16 million, if he says you'd be getting 2 to 3 more as a DN, that puts him at 18, 19, which is still far too low. I think 20 is the absolute floor right now. It's probably going to be much higher than that. So yeah, I think Clayton is just off base. Yeah, that linebacker versus DN distinction may be an issue with the tag, but when it comes to negotiating, where everyone knows what the player does, what his worth is, or what his role is, and how much that line gets blurred, that stuff is moot.
Can you make any sort of argument to me right now that T.J. Watt's value, as we sit here right now, is lower than $20 million per?
No, I can't.
I don't see how anybody can. I just don't, and especially on the heels of Myles Garrett signing for $25 million. I mean, really, the conscious thing to do automatically, in my opinion, would be to say, well, okay, Watt's value floor right now is $25 million per. But I'm willing to give a little leeway there. I don't know why, but I would think $20 million would be the floor right now for Watt. If for some reason he wanted to do you a favor and sign right now and yada yada, that would be the absolute floor. And even then, I would be shocked if he signed for as much.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, premier pass rusher, or at least right up there, defensive MVP candidate yearly at this rate is reasonable to expect and assume. 3-down guy, cover, play the run, effort, leader, good guy. Every single box get checked. Young, obviously, still a young guy. I mean, again, you're going to have to pay that guy a whole lot of money because those guys with that skill set and how complete he is very rare.
Now, you sort of, throughout the offseason, I think a few times I've talked, this guy could be pushing $30 billion, and I think I caused you to flinch a few times.
I still don't know about 30.
I'm saying not at 30, but knocking on the door pretty damn strong, because who's up next? Bosa, right?
Joey Bosa?
Right.
Yeah. I have not followed.
I mean, he's on his 5th-year option right now, right?
Okay.
No way. Does Joey Bosa, after all that he went through on his rookie, remember all the stink about his rookie contract and all? All right. Yep. Now here he is on his 5th-year option right now, right? No way in hell that guy plays on his 5th-year option, right?
I haven't followed the negotiations, but you would expect an extension at some point for Bosa.
All right. What's his extension going to be if you average yearly value?
I mean, it's probably going to be similar. It's probably going to be in that 22 to 26 kind of range. I have again a great pulse of the situation, but it's going to be in the 20s for sure.
I mean, it's going to be higher than Garrett's, right? I mean, that's how this thing works, right?
Yeah, I mean, generally. How
surprised will you be if it's not more than Garrett? In other words, it doesn't come in around $25.5 million to $26 million per.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably be less surprised, and it sounds like you might be. I think they're all going to be similar. I think they're all going to be, because I don't know, it's a jump, and so I don't know if you're going to have that jump again that quickly, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't.
I mean, because Garrett, I mean, what was Mac at? What was his yearly value at?
It was 23.5.
Right, and then Garrett's at 25. I think Bosa's going to be right around Garrett. I think maybe a little bit lower, a little bit higher is where I expect Bosa to come in at.
All right. Well, $25.5 million is higher. So, would you expect it come in? You could see it coming in at 25.5, right?
Yeah, I said 22 to 26 is my range for Bosa.
I'll be shocked if it comes in under Garrett's, to be honest with you. But if it does come in underneath Garrett's, it's going to be higher than Mac's, 23.5.
Mm-hmm. So that's fair.
So you're talking about, I mean, you're talking about somewhere between 24 and 25. 24 is going to be the absolute floor, I think, with Bosa, right? You would think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be right around Garrett's number, however you want to split that up.
Okay, let's for sake of the argument here, let's say Bosa comes in at 26. Okay, $1 million more than Garrett. Well, you still got a whole free agency to go. Next free agency where they're, who knows who might cash in on that. And then after that, Watt might be one or two up next up to the podium from there. So that's how I came to the assumption that he could be knocking on the $30 million door.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's hard to predict how the market's going to look a year from now. I mean, obviously, I think Watt's going to get much, much more than what John Clayton's putting them at, and I think they're all going to kind of be around that Garrett number. But if Watt were to win MVP and someone else gets paid in free agency and puts him at 26, 27, then sure. I mean, the sky's the limit for TJ Watt right now.
Did you know that Watt's in some very nice company after 3 seasons right now, dating back to 1982. When sacks became an official stat, only 23 players have registered 30 or more sacks through their first 3 years. TJ Watt is one of those 23 players, as is his older brother, J.J. Watt. Additionally, only 10 other players have registered more sacks than Watt's 34.5 in their first 3 NFL seasons dating back to 1982. By the way, Myles Garrett is not one of those 10 players.
Where does Garrett rank in it? We know where he's.
He's in those 23 players.
He is. Okay.
He's in a 23 that have registered 30 or more sacks in his first 3 years.
Yeah, obviously he missed 6 games last year. Otherwise, would have been even higher. Yeah, I mean they're both great players. Obviously, I understand the dislike of and the hatred of Garrett for everything that happened last year, but he is a great player. There's no denying that. He knew the deal was going to get done, and the same can be said for TJ Watt. And the dude's going to cash in big whenever he does cash in.
What would you tell the people that say, Dave, you're crazy? No way the Steelers pay more than $20 million per, and definitely not $25 million per for Watt.
I think you should look at the market value and then look at Watt and look how good he is. I mean, you can't get everybody for the price you would love to. The market is going to dictate this stuff, and barring the cap uncertainty, and if it were to fall off, which we don't really expect right now, barring that, then yeah, you're going to see Watt get paid market value.
The only way that this doesn't happen with Watt is, knock on wood, something unfortunate happen, season ending, something that would wipe out, a good portion of his season, be something that he'd have to recover from, and then the Steelers take a wait and see approach with him at that point, and then make him play out his 5th year option next year, and then get to a potential tag situation in 2022. But even so, do the Steelers want it to get that far? Now, I don't think if Watt was to have something happen that cost him value this season injury-wise, I don't think he would be in a rush just to sign any deal next offseason when he's got $10 million in the pocket already. On his fifth year option. So the only way I can see Watt not signing a year from now a mega deal that would be pushing $30 million per in new money average would be some sort of injury type deal. So mark that section of the podcast just as a cover your butt kind of situation, because that's really the only way that I foresee him not getting that kind of deal roughly a year from now.
Fair enough. I agree. Yeah, he's one of those rare non-quarterback blank check kind of guys where you write a blank check, whatever number you put down, you're going to be happy with because he's going to be worth it. And
man, if he goes out and has another season similar to or better than he had last season, which is there's I wouldn't bet against that. Man, I mean, you're talking about the league's best pass rusher, I think, or damn near close to it.
Right up there for sure. Yeah.
Who is the NFL's best pass rusher right now?
That's a really good question. Is it still Mack? I mean, all the attention he commands. Watt's up there. I mean, for sure. Aaron Donald, obviously.
As far as edges go.
Yeah, I think that Mack still probably holds that top spot, but
Garrett's good, right?
Yeah, no, Garrett's very good.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's where we're at with Watt and Hayward and Dupree based off things that have transpired this past week. And for people to say, you got to save money for Minka, remember, Minka's down the line, folks. I mean, this time next year, he will have had his fifth-year option picked up, right?
Yes.
And it would take a lot for a guy like Terrell Edmonds to have his fifth-year option picked up, right?
Yeah, we'll see how this year goes. I don't know. It's a very big year for Terrell Edmonds. I'll put it that way.
All right. So, and then the fifth-year option picked up would mean that they would. In other words, you're still a couple years away from having to do a deal with Minka.
Right. Yeah. So he's down the order. Basically, it's like, is it fair to say Cam this year, Watt next year, Minka 2 years from now?
Yes, sir.
A good order? Okay. Yeah. And the bottom line, the takeaways from Watt and Cam in relation to these deals that have gotten done is basically that. Still every reason to expect that Cam's going to get a deal done this year. It's going to be a lot of money. Will it come under Chris Jones? Probably, but don't expect it to be $14 million per year. It's going to be just under Chris Jones. Watt's going to get done next year. It's going to be a lot higher than what John Clayton's saying. It's probably going to be at least $24 million plus, and maybe 27, 28 like you're talking about. Both are going to get done, and both are well deserved.
I think the only question at this point is the structure. And I wish I knew more about the Garrett structure right now, but I don't. I got a lot of bits and pieces of it from our buddy Joe Corey, but he hasn't come off the full figures. I know enough look, it's got a double option bonus in it, which is quite unique. We don't normally see that kind of double option kind of structure that they gave Myles Garrett there, and that's just one of those things where once the Browns can get themselves in some trouble with him, once exercise, because those are like having extra signing bonuses in there, the way those things are structured. So once I get the full layout of the Myles Garrett deal, which will probably be maybe by tonight or definitely by Monday, I'll lay it all out for all you nerds out there like me on the website, at some point.
All right. Good deal. Looking forward to it. All right, Dave, before we get
I nerd out too much about this stuff.
Well, there's not a whole lot else to nerd out about right now. Contracts are all we got. Yeah, there were more franchise deals that got done. I mean, Derrick Henry got done. Chris Jones got done. Apparently, Dak was like they were trying to get done. They took too long and missed the deadline. But a little more activity at the deadline than I anticipated, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and the Derrick Henry deal basically is really a 2-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess that's okay when it comes to him. I thought that was another one that's kind of smartly done, I think, on the Titans' part because, they paid him a nice amount of money, but they can throw him on the scrap heap after 2 years if they want. The thing about Dak, I don't see how you don't go into this thinking that you won't franchise tag Dak back-to-back years right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it obviously both sides are open to long-term deal. It sounds like they were trying to race to get something done. I'm not sure what the particulars of the deal were, but I think Dak's going to stay a Cowboy in some form or fashion for the future.
What happens there? Now, there had a CBS national radio guy kind of go on a rant saying a couple of the premier places that potentially you could see Dak landing. Not obviously not this season, not after next season, but I guess it'd be 3 seasons from now, which would technically be the season after Ben Roethlisberger's current final deal. Anyways, he's supposing that Dak could land with the Steelers. I don't. The only way I see Dak Prescott being a member of the Steelers, and what year would that be? It'd be
2022.
2022 would be as an extremely low-priced veteran backup.
Oh, well, I don't see that scenario playing out, which I think is your point here.
Huh?
I don't see that being the scenario for Dak's career arc, so I think that's your point here, that's just not going to happen.
Right, because would the Steelers be willing – because, look, let's say he got franchise tag back-to-back years with the Cowboys, right? Mm-hmm. And then let's say he's deserving of a huge deal coming out of that. The Steelers are not going to jump into another super lucrative franchise quarterback deal from Roethlisberger to Dak, would they?
You wouldn't think. I mean, the whole, future of Ben, the heir to Ben, is totally up in the air right now. My thought's always been that they're going to draft somebody to replace him, and that's going to be their approach. But yeah, it'd be surprising for that to happen.
And if Dak came out of the next 2 years kind of underwhelming, why would you want to jump into that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'll be moot ultimately. I think Dak's going to get a long-term deal done with the Cowboys at some point. Obviously not this year, but at some point they'll lock him up long-term.
And if not with him or with them, then exiting his next 2 years with the Cowboys, then it would be with another team on a lucrative deal.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. What else? What else do we have free agency wise? What's going on with the league wise right now? Here we are a week past, really almost kind of 2 weeks past kind of what I thought the league would have a lot of this stuff ironed out by now, and here we are on this Friday, and I don't know how much more we really know right now.
Well, I think we're going to find out a lot by the end of the day. The NFL and NFLPA are meeting to hammer out, final details and final agreement because, the deadline is here. I think the Chiefs and Texans have players report, Saturday? I mean, I forget what the date is, but it's now, basically. And, of course, all teams are going to fully report by the 28th. So still nothing really confirmed right now. There is going to be some sort of COVID list for players to go on to. I think they have to come back within 3 weeks. Maybe some particulars of that are still being worked out. We still don't know a ton right now, but we know the league union is meeting, so we should hopefully finally overdue, in my opinion, and have some answers by the end of the day.
I think the league is purposely dragging their feet on their side of the negotiations because they're wanting to kind of get the players to give in. They want the players to have the sense of urgency that they have to get something done.
Yeah, obviously, I think what's going to be the ugliest is the cap stuff because it seems like the NFL is taking a page out of Major League Baseball because they first offer the 35% escrow account where players would have that money put into escrow, and now they're offering some other structure that's different but weirdly very similar to that initial proposal.
Right, and they're wanting players to help them start eat the losses now.
Right. Yeah, by slashing salaries. So,
right.
Which is, I think, to me, almost a non-starter. If they're going to play 16 games, the NFL is, players are not going to have any desire to reduce pay, nor should they.
But will they give in? I think that by the time we cross the T's and dot the I's here in the next, 24, 48, whatever, 72 hours, that we're going to be talking about, damn it, the players let them have too much again.
In terms of the salary cap,
just some aspect of this, whether it be testing, whether it be, and look, I think there was the report yesterday about they need to decide whether or not to opt out by August 1st.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, you might as well go ahead and say tomorrow.
Right, and we don't do we even know the details of the opt out? Do you get paid? Do you not get paid?
I don't think we know. I would hate to quote, and I would hate to say, because it seems like this stuff changes almost hourly, you know.
So we don't know. I mean, we don't know how that's going to go.
I don't fully know yet. No, right. Or at least I don't think that I know that there's been any definites on this kind of stuff right now here. But look, I mean, I think, and you know, the league wants to test every other day. The players want testing every day. I think you got to test every day, man. You know, especially if you're not, if these guys aren't going to be in bubbles, right?
Right.
This thing, you just set yourself up for, you know, look, if you would 3 months ago or 2 months ago, I would have thought, all right, you know, a lot of this stuff maybe would have been behind us now, you know, but that's why I say, you have to sit and wait and see how this kind of stuff plays out sometimes, because here we are, and, you know, this thing's still spreading at an alarming rate right now, and there's no reason to think that it wouldn't right now. The next several weeks of training camp here, and if you're not testing every day, man, this thing could get out of hand back. I don't care how much social distancing you do in the locker room, right?
No, I agree. I mean, I guess the only concern for testing every day is just making sure there's enough tests available, not overwhelming the system, the labs that are going to have to test this stuff, and making sure that you're not taking away from the community, because testing, while improved across the United States, still is lacking in some facets. And so I guess that would be the community concern that the NFL could argue.
And as you kind of mentioned there, they still don't know, or there's been no word yet of what's going to happen with the cap, and the players better stand by the aspect that owners just need to go ahead and get them a good little plan together that assures the cap stays at least at a minimum flat in 2021, and then you borrow from you know, whatever you got to do to make the increases, you know, swallowable from that point forward by borrowing from future years. Because look, they haven't even struck that new TV deal. Like it or not, they could just pass this stuff on to the TV, to the networks, you know, to some degree.
Yeah. It's disappointing, but not surprising that this is all coming down to the wire to the very last second. It creates confusion, creates tension, frustration within the players, within the fans who don't know what's happening. And I got some pushback. I thought it was kind of weird on Twitter because, you know, I'm not saying that this stuff had to be figured out 2 months ago. I understand things change. You don't want to have plans too early because, you know, as situations evolve, especially what's happened with COVID the last couple of weeks and the spike in cases. But there were some basic things you knew were not going to change. Player testing, player opt-outs, emergency protocol, just basic protocol, stuff like that, where that stuff could have been tackled a week ago. Again, I'm not saying it had to be done 2 months ago, but it didn't have to be done now at the very last second either. So you can focus your attention now on some of those bigger issues like salary cap stuff. So the fact that the NFL, like you said, was dragging their feet, waiting until the very last second to try to figure all this out at once, I think is just kind of reckless.
Yeah, I'm not overly surprised though, and I think it's a negotiation. I think a lot of it has to do with some negotiation stuff here. You know, trying to get the players to put pressure on to get something done. J.C. Treader, the new president, boy, he's up against it already. I think Cam Heyward, the Steelers player rep, is talking a nice game on Twitter. But how, you know, and Richard Sherman and several of these, you know, J.J. Watt, several of these team leaders and all. But when push comes to shove, how deep are they willing to dig their heels in here?
Right.
You know,
that'd be a question.
If I put this on Twitter yesterday. Look, I understand that most of the league just wants, you know, most of the league are bottom feeders, if you will. Talk about players that are minimum salary guys as a whole, and all those guys want to do is play football and get a paycheck, right? But these and obviously the guys who have already the multi-million deals have time on their side where they can, you know, tend to negotiate and dig their heels better. But I think for the future of those younger players, they need to dig their heels in here. You know, they need to make a stand, and they need to hold the league's hands to the fire. And if I'm them, I already have these whatever grievance needs to be filed by them having to report without some of these things put to bed. I already had that grievance typed out and ready to go.
Yeah.
Because no way do I want, if I'm the NFLPA, if we get to the end of this Friday or by the end of Saturday or whenever, and none of these things are put to bed, no way in hell do I want the players reporting.
Yeah, I'm with you. This stuff has to be agreed upon. I mean, that's common sense. You need to have everything agreed upon before you begin your season. It's sad that the NHL looks so much more competent. You know, they got protocols done and a whole new CBA done like a month ago, and the NFL's in the situation they are now. According to the NFLPA, 72 players have tested positive for COVID as of July 10th. That's over the offseason. Does not mean everyone's been tested. That's just what's been known so far. That's about 2.5% of rosters, and expect the number to rise once players come together and everyone gets tested right now.
What's going to happen with preseason? We're going to have one or no games?
Sounding like the latest that the report was, and I forget where the initial report came from, was that one game. Basically, the NFL wants 2, PA wants 0. They'll compromise in the middle at 1. I think it's going to be 1 or 0 at this point.
You might as well have none.
Yeah.
If you're going to have one, you might as well have none.
Right.
You know? What are you going to get done? Seriously, what are you going to do in one game other than get somebody hurt?
Yeah, that's fair. And at that point, are you going to carry 90-man rosters in the preseason if you're not going to have any preseason at all to justify having that? I don't know. They'll probably still keep 90-man rosters if I had to guess. Yeah, it's going to look very different. And right now, unfortunately, we still sit here today saying we don't have a whole lot of answers. But hopefully by Tuesday, we'll kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, here we are. I thought 2 Fridays ago we would have a lot or I was hoping we'd have a lot of this put to bed, but we don't. All right, we're 1 hour in. We're making progress. We're moving this show along. Huh?
All right, let's keep it moving, Dave. Let's talk about the Steelers defensive line preview. We've previewed the offense over the last couple of podcasts. We'll switch over to the defense and the D-line today, and mentioned Cam Heyward, and I think the big news for him, at least when it comes to the summer, is just waiting on that probable extension. Stephon Tuitt coming back off his season-ending injury last year. That is huge, obviously, to replace Javon Hargrave as a sub-package rusher. And to me, Dave, Tuitt was the MVP, the best player on this defense before getting hurt last year, which is a high bar because of how well this defense was playing.
Boy, and we've talked about that, through up until that game against the Chargers, man, that guy was on fire.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest aspect with Tuitt right now, you would think that him being fully recovered now from the pectoral, whatever, from last year, that you would expect him to be able to pick up where he left off, because that guy was a monster.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was unblockable, really. For you go back to that San Francisco game. I rewatched that the other day.
Destroyed McGlinchey.
Oh man, I mean, he was on fire up until suffering that injury early in the Chargers game. Now, he's kind of like the defensive version. Slightly better, I think.
James Conner.
James Conner on offense.
Mm-hmm.
This guy has to stay healthy now and put it all together for one full season. Really, his future in Pittsburgh right now depends on the 2020 season. If Tuitt cannot stay healthy, and we're back in a situation of talking about, man, this guy is so damn good, but he can't stay on the field for a full 16 game schedule. Well, then you have to seriously consider the fact that he might not be on this team in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
The talent's there, the work ethic's there. Great guy. I mean, he checks all the boxes other than, can you keep him on the field for a 16-game schedule?
Yeah, exactly. Over the last 4 years, he's averaging 4 sacks per season, and that's partially because of health issues, but that's kind of the point, is the talent is so much better than what the productivity has been, the availability has been. Yeah, the big thing last year was he was finishing his plays. He was always a guy in priorities, even where he stayed mostly healthy, where he just couldn't finish the sack. He got close, he would get the hurry, he'd get the pressure, but he couldn't get the sack. And he was finally finishing those plays this past year, and then, of course, gets hurt 6 games into the season. But, to have Tuitt and Hayward both healthy, that kind of duo, I think, might be tops in football.
Man, it's hard to think that it wouldn't be the couple of the top, bookends there.
So, but yeah, it's about staying healthy. Unfortunately, that's been the recurring theme for him. The dude has a career high in sacks is 6.5, which was set his sophomore year in 2015. Since then, it's been 4, 3, 5.5, 3.5. We know he's capable of much more. Again, health has been the big issue. When healthy, if he could play 16 games fully, this guy could easily crack double-digit sacks, I think, honestly.
I think so as well too. He needs a solid season. He needs to stay healthy doing it. If not, we're going to be talking about him after the season as a potential unfortunate cap casualty or trade candidate or along those lines. He's got to have it all this season. If he does, look out. I mean, look, this is a Pro Bowl caliber potential all-pro type player if he stays on the field.
Yeah, and it's a good yin and yang with Hayward. Hayward's a little bit more power and bull rush, and Tuitt's a little more finesse, but they really complement each other extremely well. And, of course, both very talented and play with fanatical effort. Their effort, chasing the ball sideline to sideline is phenomenal. Dave, in the middle, probably a new man with Tyson Alualu, probably going to be your man in the middle. He'll battle Daniel McCullers, but I don't think it's much of a battle, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's another thing we've talked about. Once we got a new leader in the clubhouse a couple of weeks ago with Mike Tomlin, it started off being needing to hear or see something to be something other than Daniel McCullers, and now we know that it. I really think it was a big indictment on Daniel McCullers. Not surprising, but an indictment nonetheless. With them saying that Tyson Alualu would be first man up, if you will. My only concern, and look, sitting here this time a year ago, would I have thought Tyson Alualu would still be a member of the Steelers? I would have bet against that happening.
Same.
You probably would have as well,
right?
Yeah,
no, we thought he could be a cap casualty, but he played. He had a very good year last season.
He really did, and I think that's something that stuck out. And look, it was a byproduct of him seeing the field more. With Tuitt going down and all like that. But even right from the get-go, I thought he was making a few impact plays. I think he had a couple back-to-back in the Bengals game. Look, a very experienced guy, a guy that really I think pound for pound, play for play. And this guy's been around the league for quite a while now, former first-round draft pick. I think play-for-play aspect with him, I think last year was his best season as a professional.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch his early days in Jacksonville, but as a Steeler, I can say with confidence last year was his best season.
All right, so now you're going to – how big a difference will it be moving him in the middle?
A little bit, I'm sure, facing some more double teams. He's not played a base nose tackle before, but, I mean, he is a veteran guy. It's not going to be brand new. It's obviously not new to him. This is fairly familiar territory, just playing along the defensive line, understanding assignments and roles. So I don't think it'll be a massive adjustment for him to make.
Drop off from Javon Hargrave, obviously.
Yes. Sorry, trade.
That thing almost sounds like it comes right by your front door.
I can see if the conductor's flossing his teeth. Like, that's how close I am to the tracks.
Oh,
like,
really?
I'm right there.
Yeah, go out there one of these days and put a quarter out there and have it flattened and send it to me. That was always fun as a kid, walking the railroad tracks and putting stuff, putting coins or whatnot on the railroad track and getting them flattened. You need to get a newly minted Pennsylvania quarter and do that.
You were a co-star in Stand By Me, right?
No, not that bad. You could use those for great guitar picks and all like that.
There you go.
Too, but
anyway,
all right. Back to Alualu. I am a little bit concerned, but I mean, as much as this team is uses base and all now, it's going to be a drop off. I wouldn't expect the kind of production out of Alualu overall. That they got out of Javon Hargrave the last couple of years, but they can get by, especially if a guy behind him, takes another step forward and able to cover up maybe some of those mistakes a little bit better in Devin Bush. It's not ideal, but I think you can get by on a year.
Yeah, I mean, again, obviously as a pass rusher, because there's two places you got to replace Hargrave as your sub package pass rusher, nickel rusher. But to it's obviously going to do that, and Isaiah Buggs in his second year, and Alualu can do a little bit of that as well. But then as a run defender, and there'll be some drop off there, but Alualu's been, his calling card has been steady, solid run defense, and so there won't be a massive drop off there either. So again, this group stays healthy and guys ascend and all that, then you can survive the loss of Javon Hargrave.
What's the ceiling for snaps for Alualu? 300, 330?
Well, we know they're going to be in base about 30% of the time, 30 to 33. That would roughly give you 300 snaps there. Not that he's going to play every single one of those. Yeah, I think you're in the ballpark. 300 to 350 is kind of my expectation.
Now, obviously, injury could change that in a hurry.
Like last year.
And that's you worry about, okay, can he repeat the kind of performance on a higher amount of snaps as he had last season? And I think
how many snaps did he play last season? I'm gonna look that up.
I kind of fear him, doubling down on something like that happening.
Yeah, he's just a guy you trust. He's just a guy that's going to be in the right position. He's a smart, heady guy. He plays with great effort. He loves to finish plays. Again, he punched the football out a million times last year. Finally forced one last season. Played 440 snaps last year. So I think he'll be under that this year, but not significantly so.
Yeah, I think ideally 100 less snaps would be ideally.
Yeah, that sounds a good number. 340, 350.
Okay. Speaking of McCullers.
I think he'll just be here again as a 6th defensive lineman like he's been for essentially his entire career. And it's not my favorite thing in the world, but I think it's what's going to happen because the guys behind him who could theoretically push him are all young guys who really are getting screwed by the lack of an offseason right now. So it's going to be hard for those guys those guys have to do something to push McCullers off the roster, and there simply just may not be much of an opportunity to do so. And so I think McCullers will be the backup nose tackle. The question is, will he be active on game days? That's a better question, I think, than asking about his roster spot right now.
Boy, to pay him, and look, you're not, on paper, it's not a huge salary, but as I stated, I think a couple weeks ago, to have him as not a game day active, making that kind of weekly stipend, if you will, just hard to swallow, man.
I know. Hey, it wouldn't be my decision, but I think it's going to be their decision.
And the thing is really based on the way kind of this thing is going, we're not going to know who's doing what during camp to know whether or not his job's threatened anyway.
Right. But I think he's going to be safe because, is Carlos Davis really going to push him, a 7th-round rookie who's missed everything and may have one preseason game where, of course, he's not going to play a whole lot in to take McCullers' job, who they clearly like enough to hold on to him and keep giving him these one-year deals?
It's hard to imagine. The draft pick making it.
So, if it had been a normal offseason, potentially, but I just can't see it right now.
Yeah, it's tough to imagine that as well, too. All right, Bugs, we expect, obviously, to make this roster along with Chris Worley as well, too.
Yeah.
Wormley, I'm sorry. I got a good buddy, a lifelong friend. His last name is Worley, and every time I see these two names, I always try to want to intertwine them. But with Wormley coming over from Baltimore in the offseason trade, which was a little bit of a surprise, you get kind of a Tyson Alu light. I don't know.
I think they're similar. They are run stoppers first, second, and third. Wormley has good size, good play strength, holds up against the run well, stays square to the line of scrimmage. As a pass rusher, he's pretty limited, similar to Alualu. He's not someone that's going to play a whole lot in sub-package, maybe a little bit, but not going to be the first man off the bench. I think it'll be Hayward, Tuitt, maybe even Buggs. Buggs is probably a better pass rusher than Wormley is right now, but a very solid 4-eye kind of guy.
What do you foresee the ideal amount of snap breakdown between Wormley and Buggs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if it would be more by package a little bit. Buggs probably get the nod in some more pass rush situations, some more sub stuff, whereas Wormley we'll see more rotational snaps in base. Might be a good way to divvy up those snaps. Of course, there'll be crossover. Wormley can play in sub. Bugs can play in base, that's going to happen. But that might be my initial approach, to keep guys rested, to have a clean rotation for getting guys on and off the field.
Yeah, way to maybe lighten the load a little bit on Alu as well too.
As a nose tackle?
Well, I mean, just no, in sub.
Okay, yeah. I don't think he's going to play a whole lot of sub, again, a little bit, but I think the top guys in sub package are going to be Hayward, Hargrave, and Bugs. It's kind of the way I would stack the deck to start. Or did I say Hargrave? Or Hayward too, and Bugs.
Bugs, you view as, where would you rate him as far as a pass rusher? Along with where would you rate, is Bugs the best pass rusher of him, Wormley, and Alu?
I would say so. I know we're not going off a big sample size right now, but I like what I saw last year, the snap, the hand use. He's got good hips. He can get skinny. So, yeah, I would rate him as a better pass rusher than Wormley or Alu right now.
And I remember breaking down his pressure sack reel from Alabama, and I viewed him as a better against the pass than he was against the run.
Right.
As well. So a lot of people were saying, well, Bugs can be the guy that fills in at nose. I think a lot would have to happen injury wise to get to a point where Bugs is in the middle of that base defense.
Yeah, I think he'd be like fourth string right now behind Alu, McCullers, Wormley, and then maybe Bugs. And at that point, you're probably just not running a 3-4 defense. You're just going to be in subs. So he's not a nose tackle, and that's fine. He's going to be a bit of a 4-eye and I think, nickel type rusher.
All right, and where are we behind the rest of those guys? Obviously, you got Carlos Davis, the rookie that, if things go well, he spends the year on your practice squad and maybe hopefully develops into being your I dare say new Javon Hargrave, because that's quite a quite an ask right there. But maybe a guy that can give you some base and some sub package snaps.
Yeah, he's a more athletic nose tackle, I guess. In terms of the Hargrave, he's kind of more of a Hargrave style as opposed to a McCullers style. But you just don't know a whole lot about the guy right now. We don't know exactly where they want to play him. I assume he's going to kind of work nose tackle, some 3-tech, and some sub package situations. Maybe even play a little bit of DN. I think he's was position flexible at Nebraska, but he's a guy that's probably going to take a redshirt year on the practice squad. And hopefully he can do that, because our last 7th round, defensive lineman didn't make the team at all with Josh Frazier. So let's get Davis on the practice squad, get him a year just to, get him acclimated and work from there.
Yeah, I think the stuff that's going to hurt him is, not having the off season, obviously, because look, strength is a lot of this too, and conditioning and
playbook,
and coaching and playbook and all that goes along with it, and he's had none of it. So it's just hard to envision, him. Even if he did make the 53, he wouldn't be. He obviously wouldn't dress, or you wouldn't think he would, barring some sort of injuries or whatnot taking place there. So, it's hard to see him making it. And same with a guy like Walker, Kayvon Walker, who come over from the USF,
back from the
XFL.
80s, Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting guy. He had 4.5 sacks in 5 games, was leading the league in sacks there. So, I mean, there's some sort of intrigue. And as we've talked about, he does have the benefit of he's played football more recently than other guys. He's been in professional football. That's going to give him a leg up over, say, rookies he's going to be competing with Carlos Davis and Calvin Taylor and Josiah Coatney and guys like that. So that's going to help. But again, still lack of an offseason program in Pittsburgh is really going to make that a big mountain to climb, even bigger mountain to climn.
A poor guy like Coatney, who is a guy that you've kind of been a little bullish on since he was signed. The poor guy probably not even going to get a shot,
Maybe practice squad, probably the best thing for him.
Yeah. And let's see,
Calvin Taylor.
Who Taylor's the other one out of Kentucky.
Yeah. Who I still wonder if they're going to switch to offensive tackle. Big 6'9".
Yeah. Well, he's probably not going to get much of a snap. Not many snaps to go around at this point.
Right. All those guys. I mean, anyone from Davis on, Carlos Davis on back, or in that same boat where just snaps and reps opportunity can be tough to come by. Basically, their best hope is that the practice squad, the expansion to 12 now, will hopefully it gets expanded even further because of COVID, because of the lack of an offseason. Hopefully, that gets moved up to like 16, and that'll allow 1 or 2 more of those guys to be kept. That's what most of those guys are shooting for right now.
I guess it's a good year not to spend the money on the undrafted signing.
I guess so. Kevin Colbert playing the long game.
Yeah, no doubt there. Yeah, I mean, look, I think the six we would think that they would keep right now are kind of obvious, right? You got.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, the six, yeah. Hayward to it, Buggs, Alualu, McCullers, Wormley. Those are your six. The question is, who's active? Who does not get the hat on game day?
I would think that'd be McCullers. I don't see what good McCullers serves you. And then I guess the question is in game backup,
right? Nose tackle,
base nose tackle,
which would probably be Wormley, I guess. But they've always had. I mean, they generally have had McCullers active. They've usually had that backup nose tackle active. I don't know. I don't know which way they would go, but I'm just playing devil's advocate. I mean, McCullers has usually gotten a hat to be the backup nose tackle.
You wouldn't think with what they're paying, obviously you're going to put your best guys out there, but the salary that Wormley's earning coming over, you would think he's going to be active.
Yeah, it really comes down to McCullers versus Buggs for me, who they're going to keep active. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. My gut tells me the Buggs would be odd man out to start the year.
Who has the best chance of being number 7 as we sit here right now?
I mean, throw a dart. I mean, it's a lot of guys we don't know a whole lot about. Maybe Walker, just because he's got some experience and that's going to help him. But he's got a weird body type, isn't he? Like 6'1". He's short, weighty.
Yeah, I would hope that he got to eating a little bit too.
So I'm not entirely sure where you even going to play him. It's really a dart throw, and I have no idea who the next man up would be.
I don't either, because we're just not going to learn enough about these guys right now. We're going to be guessing. Who 7 and 8 are for quite a while.
I agree. I mean, I think Davis will probably make the practice squad, because you just kind of punt on those rookies and say, you got screwed, we'll put you on the practice squad and see what happens. But that's just a guess right now.
It's very concerning if he does not make the practice squad.
Yeah.
You got to wonder what happened in the scouting process there.
Yeah, be a good question. Good. Hopefully it's not a Josh Frazier's 2.0.
All right. What else do we have about the defense? I think we covered that kind of top to bottom.
Yep, I think we got everybody. All right, Dave. Let's get to some reader emos and close out the show.
All right, we're actually making some decent time today, are we not?
Yeah, look, hour 20 in.
Let's see here if we can find some good. This one's from Jay Barbati, who writes in quite a bit. In reference to the previous reader email, running backs get screwed more than any position in all of sports. They consistently come in and monstrously outperform their rookie deals, and by the time they are up for second contract, their bodies are beat to you-know-what, and no one wants to pay up. Think Alfred Morris or Steve Slayton, who dominated early and faded before getting a payday. Can't blame teams for not wanting to pay, so there needs to be another way. He goes on to write, most other positions hit their prime during their second contract as their skills and experience improve, but running back is probably the most instinctual position on the field, and their prime years are right out of college before the pounding takes its toll. Long story short, players should be paid commiserate with their contributions. The league is swimming in money and can afford to pay their overachievers, which is what that other listener was pitching. I guess we're talking about a previous email we got. There's no competitive balance or cap issue if the NFLPA can come up with a fund for guys who grossly outperform their contracts. Don't they have
the play snap count escalator?
That's for the top draft picks, though, for the escalator. But there's also that what do they call that damn incentive, that filer and
performance. Yeah, it's a performance bonus pool. I forget. Let me try to look up what the name of it was. But yeah, I mean, those things do exist today.
Now, granted, it's not a huge extra payday, but I mean, you've had a guy like Filer that's earned. What has he earned? What has Filer gotten on that last couple of years?
This year he got $387,000 for performance-based pay. The top guy was Chiefs cornerback Javarius Ward, who got $650,000. So yeah, it's the guy's usually not making much money. That's a pretty big chunk of change to them.
That's another season's worth of pay, right? I mean, it's really doubling your pay.
Yeah, it says that Ward $654,000 he got was 15% more than his 2019 salary. So yeah, that is that is a system that works well and gives those guys a lot of money.
Right. So Jay, that they've got something in line for that. Now, obviously, it's not grossly, putting millions of dollars in these guys who overachieve, if you will. And as we mentioned, there's the proven performance escalator for the draft picks as well too. Look, a guy like James Conner just barely missed that thing. Right. James Conner could have another 18, what was it, 1,200 or 1,600, I forget what the exact number was. Had he stayed on the field more, he would have qualified for that just by staying on the field,
Yep.
and playing X amount of snaps there. Anyway, he goes on to write, there's no competitive balance or cap, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, the player is just better rewarded for disproportionate contributions to the team. Just something I get really fired up about. I hate seeing talent flame out before they can capitalize. Here's the thing about poor running backs is generally their best shot at contributing early in their career is coming in as, let's say, a first or third round draft pick, because they're not going to get thrown to the side immediately. You got a first or third round draft pick invested in a running back. You're probably going to try to get him on the field quicker rather than later, right? And unfortunately, those backs really have a small window to try to show that they're worth being out there on the field, especially if they're not a first or a second round draft pick in those situations. Moving on from that, if those guys drafted in the first or third round don't make an immediate impact, or they get dinged or something like that, that's when the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round guys might get a small window to see what they can do in there, or the undrafted guys on top of that. Those guys really have a small window to come in and show that, okay, I can be an NFL running back, or I could be a fungible piece, as I like to say. And even if they are that fungible piece, how many times do you see a fungible running back make it to a second contract and get paid?
It's pretty rare these days.
Can you name any?
Did Philip Lindsay get a contract extension?
I don't think he did he?
I don't remember if he got a new deal or if he was close.
But even he wasn't an undrafted guy. He was a 7th round guy.
No, he was undrafted. Yeah,
was he?
Undrafted. Okay. Did he get a new deal? I'm not sure. Maybe not. But yeah, I mean, obviously the point is we're racking our brain. It's proving the point, I think.
Right. I mean, is it fair? I mean, if you could go down the list, really. If you're not a pedigree draft pick type of guy, you got a lot to prove in a short amount of time. That's why it makes it, when you look at guys like Vince Williams, who I mentioned yesterday on Twitter, on top of it as well too. If there's one person right now on the Steelers who really needs the league to work something out really, really quick when it comes to how the 2000 cap or 2020 loss in earnings will work out against the cap, it's him. Because quite honestly, you can make an argument that some teams, if indeed this winds up being a situation where teams know that it'll be a substantial drop in salary cap money in 2021, which I still don't think is going to happen. But if they get in a situation in the next week or two where teams are starting to be told, you expect a huge drop in the cap in 2021, a lot of them will start planning for that this summer. Okay? And by that, I mean cutting some of these mid-level players right now, even if they are kind of borderline starters, because you save that cap money now, and if you can roll it over, you can roll it over, know? So a guy like Vince Williams is square in, like it or not. I know we've talked about him being that kind of guy. Look at he's penciled in really to be the starter alongside Devin Bush right now. But could there are going to be teams that'll be up against it, and the Steelers are kind of going to probably be one of those up against it, and really up against it if the cap was to drop substantially. That maybe you look at and say, how bad do we need Vince Williams this year? Obviously next year he'd be on the chopping block.
Yeah, it's a scenario I pray does not happen, because no one wins in that moment.
Right. Look, and I put this out there on Twitter yesterday. like it or not, the NFL and the NFLPA don't want to get in a situation where the cap drops in 2021. It's not good for anybody involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I am with you. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know what the solution is going to be right now, but I just know it cannot be that cap falling off a cliff.
All right, Darren Boyer writes in, hi, Dave and Alex. I've been a huge fan of the site and podcast for years. I recently started participating on the discussion threads on the site and must say the community is way more knowledgeable than the typical Steelers fan base. Yeah, I like to think that we got a good core of the people that comment. I think we got a good core overall of knowledgeable guys in there, right?
No, I think it's one of the great things about the site is that we have this really strong community with regular posters, new posters, and I think that's one reason why people keep coming back to the site.
He said, just want to shout out the audience and give you props for all the good topics the site provides. Well, it's not just me and Alex. We got a lot of great we got a great team all together that puts out fantastic content week in and week out there. His question is this. There has been a lot of talk about nose tackle and base defense this offseason, and for good reason. Given Tomlin's roots as a 4-3 guy, is there a scenario where you see this team running base defense without a nose tackle? Would it be feasible to play a 4-3 base and rotate Hayward, Tuitt, Bud, TJ Wormley, Alu, Buggs, and potentially Highsmith as your 4 defensive linemen, and then put 3 linebackers on the field behind them, such as Bush at the Mike, Vince as the Sam, and UG3 or Brooks as the Will? Brooks is not going to be anywhere close to being ready. Brooks is going to cut his teeth as a safety. So that's maybe you can get something from Brooks as the season progresses there, but I think you got to remove Brooks from the equation. Do you really want a guy like Vince playing more snaps on the field as part of a 3 linebacker system?
Yeah, I know we get this question a lot. It seems to come up every offseason about changing systems and schemes. The Steelers have a good thing going on defense right now. Keith Butler's still coaching these guys. Your coaching staff behind Tomlin are still based around 3-4 linebackers, Olszewski, of course, Keith Butler. So you're not going to rock the boat in any kind of way like that anytime soon.
I don't think so either. Now, could you get into some big nickel fronts? Some other, some of what we call big nickel fronts occasionally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they even actually literally ran some 4-3 last year. I think there was injuries that pushed them to do that, but in terms of actually making an intentional switch to that, it's not going to happen.
I don't see that happening either. And if you did, Bud Dupree would be screaming, I'm a defensive end.
Yeah, right.
I'm a defensive end. I really am. I'm a defensive end. No, I mean, look, obviously they're going to have a lot of 4-man front looks just out of, and really you talk about 3-4 base, really they're not, their 3-4 base now is sub package.
Right. Yeah. It's the minority personnel grouping.
It's not base. So the Steelers' base defense is a 4-man front now. Their 3-4 look is their sub. Mm-hmm. If you want. But yeah, we see where you're coming, Darren, from Brooklyn. But it's just hard to imagine that. As we mentioned, you might see some big nickel aspects, occasionally. But even then, I don't see that happening. Right,
yep,
Alex?
I'm with you.
Let's see. Ted Webb writes in, which non-Steeler NFL player, past or present, would you pay to see play or definitely turn on your TV to watch them play? He says his is Barry Sanders. Good name there. I have always, I struggle to kind of answer this question because I've always just been a football fan. It doesn't take much for me to twist my arm on any given night of the week if there's a football game on to turn on the TV to watch football, period. Barry Sanders, obviously enjoyed watching him play, Megatron, but I could go back into my youth as well, too. I mean, I'm trying to come up with some names. I mean, look, even though I hated the Cowboys, you wanted to see what Roger Staubach would do, late in games on a week in, week out basis. Just watching Billy White Shoes Johnson return return kicks or whatnot was something. So it's hard for me to sit here and say what player, past or present, would I pay to see play and definitely turn on the TV. It's hard because I've always just been such a football fan that it hasn't taken much for me to turn on the TV, period. Alex, where do you come in on this?
I think about my old school nerdiness in like the old football days. I was watching the NFL Top 100 list, at least some older names and guys like Red Grange and Don Hudson and Gale Sayers. We're looking at some clips of Gale Sayers, which is really cool, and some other early Steelers like Ernie Stautner and Big Daddy Lipscomb, like that. Just really underrated defensive tackle duo for a very short amount of time. And even the earlier, like I'd love to see the 1933 Pirates Steelers and Angelo Bravelli and guys like that, and Mose Kelch, and just to see that kind of history of it. That's where I gravitate towards. So any of the old historic players, first couple of Hall of Fame classes would be awesome. Unitas, Sammy Baugh. Those kind of guys, I would pay to see because there's limited footage on some of those guys, and obviously I did not watch those guys live. So just to watch that, I think underrepresented piece of NFL history would be a lot of fun, and I would pay money for that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I would pay money tomorrow if they'd come out with a Game Pass going back into the 50s. Imagine the fun. Heck, you might not see me anymore.
I have an article coming up on a guy who played in the Pirates for 1938. I'll come up either today, tomorrow. So I like that history stuff.
And even though there's some limited, there's some great some 1960s footage now. I think of the Steelers up on the YouTube machine and all like that. But you get into it, and it's still not enough. The full games is kind of what we're after, kind of stuff. Will we ever have that stuff? If the footage, if a large selection of the footage actually existed, I think we would have it by now. But but we'll see.
Yeah, I think the earliest Steelers footage available is a game against Washington. I think in '46. I want to say was the year. There's one game floating around on the internet. I think it's the earliest footage I've ever seen of the Steelers that I'm aware of, off the top of my head.
Yeah, I love. The older the footage, the better, man. I absolutely love that. Okay, let's see. Jeff Berg writes in, "Hey, Dave and Alex, you were talking about Bud Dupree and whether an outside 3-4 linebacker should garner the same franchise tag money as a defensive end. It came to mind that a 3-4 outside linebacker typically faces a tackle like a defensive end would. And in Bud Dupree's case, he typically goes up against left tackles who are typically the highest paid offensive linemen. So perhaps Bud has some ground to stand on. What say y'all? Yeah, look, I mean, I stand firm in I think and we've said this, there should be an edge category. It all should be edge, but it's not. It's not going to be until maybe the next CBA gets decided. So in the meantime, if it's even remotely close in some of these situations, as was the case with Bud Dupree last year, but the argument comes in is where do you draw the line at? Are you going to draw the line at hand in the ground? I don't think it's fair for a player that versus hand in the ground versus not hand in the ground, that makes the difference in the $2 million or whatnot. Is it drop percentage? And if so, what is where do you draw the line in the sand on the drop percentage? Kind of situation there. I think they look at it too. And here is where John Clayton, I think, made a good point the other day.
Okay.
How many players around the league wear the franchise tag every year?
A handful.
Right. So it wasn't you talk about things on the punch list that are priority. That was way down on the priority positions for tag players.
In the sense of things to be negotiated for the new CBA.
Right. Okay. Right. Hot items. Yeah, right. That was probably way down the list, and that makes a lot of sense. I get that, but it's still the one player that's losing out the $2 million is the one player that's the most important, in my opinion. So there's not a great solution to this, Jeff. I don't think, but my heart of hearts, I believe that Dupree is worth that extra deserves, I shouldn't say worth, deserves that $2 million. And that's why I think the right thing for the Steelers to do is to split the difference with him, a la Matt Judon, who dropped more in coverage than Bud Dupree did last season.
Yeah, what we said on the podcast, even I said, that he has a case. I mean, there is a case to be made there. It's not that it's a baseless claim. It's not that if he's dropping 30% of the time and all that, he just has no shot at this thing. I mean, he has a case to be made for sure. I just don't think it's going to be strong enough for the reasons we talked about. I don't think it's going to be overwhelming enough evidence to compel the arbitrator, which I think is still Stephen Burbank, to side with Dupree.
What does it take to be the 3-4 outside linebacker versus 4-3 defensive end, rush end? Don't you really technically have to be a better player? If you're going to be the all around great prototypical 3-4 outside linebacker, don't you have to really be better all around than maybe a 4-3 rush in?
Sure, I think it's more responsibilities, but I don't think that matters in the context of what position you play. I mean, you should say, unless you're arguing that the value should just be higher for the edge guy.
I'm just saying, just on a hypothetical, obviously it's not going to matter in none of these arguments. Mm-hmm. But wouldn't you think that a 3-4 outside linebacker would be more deserving of more pay than a rush defensive end?
In the sense of they carry more responsibilities and have to be more well-rounded, yes, I do.
Right. And that's where I'm going with this. So, I think the Steelers should do the right thing and split the difference, and I think Bud Dupree should take that if offered it.
Yeah, I think he should too. And I think if it goes to a grievance, I think, again, he has the case, but I do not think he'll ultimately win.
All right, we shall see. Jelani writes in, hey, David Knox, love the show, always do, and everything you guys do. With all reports and teammates saying Ben is looking like Ben, we all know, however, it may take a couple weeks for him to get acclimated with the receivers in terms of chemistry due to him missing last season and no TAs. What would you guys as a reasonable stat line to expect for week 1 against the Giants and a reasonable stat line for this upcoming season? Thanks as always for you do great for you two for keeping up the great work. Oh Lord, we still ways away from week 1. I mean, I envision a great stat line for Roethlisberger against the Giants in week 1 as being 220 yards.
2 touchdowns, no picks.
2 touchdowns, no picks in the story. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Steelers win.
Give me some early 04-05 Ben stat line for week 1, like 18 for 24, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, like that kind of stat line to start would be ideal. Trying to project out the entire season. I mean, somewhere close.
4,200.
Yeah, what did you say? 4,200.
4,500. Yeah, 42, 45.
Right around
yards.
30 touchdowns. Give or take a few, right around there. It'd be great. And very interesting, though, if there is no preseason, Ben coming in cold like that, essentially, that'll be, probably less than ideal.
If you have one preseason game, let's say that it comes down to one preseason game that you're playing this year, and all right, so assuming that's the case, do you play Ben, and how much do you play
I
him?
do play Ben. I want him to get snaps inside a stadium before week 1. If there's a way to do that, I'm doing that. Now, am I going to play Ben a lot? No, of course not. But I'm probably going to play him a drive or series or two just to let him test out that arm, see how that arm feels inside a stadium with adrenaline going and all that, just so his first snap is not week 1 against the Giants, Monday Night Football on the road.
Do you want him to take a hit?
I mean, do I want? No. If I ever wanted Ben to take a hit before, no. But I do want to throw a deep ball with him. I want him to air out that. I want him to test that arm in a stadium one time.
So you're gonna have max protection,
yeah,
right?
It's just one route. It's just one guy running, everyone else blocking, and letting Ben air it out.
James Washington, you go deep.
There you go. Don't even have a receiver. Just let Ben throw it to air. Everyone stays in the block. Ben just gets to throw deep ones.
There you go. I'd be on board with that. Gonna be interesting to see how that.
Would you
that's
play
what
Ben?
I say, man.
Would you play Ben?
Yeah, I would. It would be it'd be a couple. I want to get him lathered up just going through the process. Right. I worry more about the process, and then I'll let him uncork one.
Okay.
because he's going to need to warm that arm up to uncork it the first play of the of the season.
What was that? 64-yard touchdown, 66-yard touchdown.
Well, 66.
Yeah, 66, getting to the 34.
People's heads are going to spin all the way around their body if I end up hitting that prediction there. But Jelani, and that's just a guess. I mean, you don't want him to have to throw for over 5,000 yards. I don't think that's ideal. Someone else mentioned, maybe we got it in here as well too. I thought I saw it, and excuse me if I don't get to it. Someone had mentioned along the lines about the prediction and the turnovers. I'm having problems finding that, but they said something to the effect that about the turnover prediction that you had and potentially recorrecting itself and it going down a little bit and all like that. But on the flip side, they mentioned something to the point that, well, if the offense capitalized on those turnovers, more putos, if you will, that could potentially happen. And yeah, damn right. I mean, you could potentially run a situation where, yeah, you only have, let's say, 25, 26 turnovers by the defense down from last season. But on the flip side, you're cashing those things in more. Heck yeah. I mean, you'd take that trade-off, wouldn't you?
I think, that's saying that it would be a total negative. If you could say that, the defense regresses to the mean takeaway numbers-wise, that may be reality, but the offense, of course, is going to bounce back in a big way. So those two things may kind of wash out while the offense is just producing more even takeaways aside, but then also, of course, capitalizing on those opportunities. So I'm not saying it would be doom and gloom for this defense or this team. I think those things have the potential to kind of balance themselves out.
Yeah, I do as well too. And look, I mean, if I had to sacrifice 6 turnovers for
a red zone offense that's top 5 instead of 30 seconds like last year.
Right, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Sure.
Sign me up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have to have that cutoff of that magic. What was it? 25 turnovers.
25. Yeah, which is still very much possible.
Right. I still have to have that, but if you made me trade in those extra above and beyond 25 turnovers for having a red zone offense similar to what it was a couple years ago, heck yeah, I take that in a heartbeat.
For sure. Yeah, the study was just to look at a narrow focus of what is a reasonable number of takeaways you can expect, what's happened to other teams, and that's all the focus was at. And if the defense even takes a small step back from that regression and the offense bounces back in a big way, the Steelers are still, I think, better off.
Minkah Fitzpatrick, number 3 on the safety list for ESPN's top 10 for 2020. I think that means he is the highest ranked Steelers player in any of these positional rankings for ESPN, correct?
Because what the Castro
like 4th?
I think it was 4th.
4th or 5th?
Yeah, so that would make Minkah the highest.
So Minkah's the highest. So at first I went through this. I didn't see his name. I thought he got left off the list entirely. So my bad for tweeting that out first thing this morning until having proper amount of coffee in me. But it says Fitzpatrick got multiple first place votes thanks to an incredible range displayed in 2019, picking off 5 passes along with 130 interception return yards. If there's a passing window to be crashed, Fitzpatrick breaks the glass. The second-year safety was a catalyst for the Steelers' return to defensive dominance in 2019. And he has a really good feel for route combinations and attacking an opponent's game plan, and NFL passing game coordinators said. He understands angles, space, and recognizing tendencies. He's a master craftsman.
Who was 1 and 2? Tyrann Mathieu? I got
no, Jamal Adams. And Harrison Smith, and all due respect to Jamal Adams, more of a box guy.
And so is Harrison Smith. Strong safety types versus.
So is Harrison Smith.
Minkah's top free safety by their rankings.
Basically, and they had Derwin James, number 4, who's a lot more versatile, I think. Kevin Byard, the guy that I think you and I were still high on. Weren't we high on him coming out of
Middle Tennessee State?
Out of Middle Tennessee State.
Combine snub. I'm not a guy. I did not get invited to the combine. Top safety. But I want to talk safeties.
Tyrann Mathieu, 6th. Justin Simmons, a guy that I think the Steelers had some interest in, number 7th. Eddie Jackson, probably one of the more underrated safeties in the league with the Bears at 8. Buda Baker, 9th of the Cardinals, and Micah Hyde, 10th.
Yeah, Micah Hyde played well against the Steelers last year. He's in Buffalo still, correct?
Yes. Honorable mention, Jimmy Ward, Landon Collins, Earl Thomas, Devin McCourty, Anthony Harris. I think McCourty probably belongs in top 10 because that guy just from not so much the athletic standpoint, but just, boy, he knows where to be on the field.
Him and Patrick Chung have been a great duo for a long time there. But yeah, Minka, he getting some respect, so I think that's a good place for him.
All right. Anything else, Alex Kozora?
Nope, that's everything. What about you, Dave Bryan?
No, that has it there. If any of you out there listening are good with the R language, and if I have to describe R language to you, then you're probably not good at it. If you understand R language, I'd like to talk to you about some stats-related stuff and maybe some work. So get a hold of me, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. Also, let's see, if you'd like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upright navigational bar, or no, ad-free version. Hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. Let's see here. If you want to send us an email, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. Also, you can find us on Twitter. Me at Steelers Depot and Alex at Alex_Kozora. Alex and I will be back on Tuesday. Maybe we'll have a lot to talk about what the league decided, Alex, and have a lot to talk about as far as that goes. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.